When I was 17, my family moved 2 states away without telling me. They left a note that said, "You'll figure it out." 12 years later, after I finally made it without them, they reached out trying to reconnect. When I was 17, I came back to a completely empty home and a note on the kitchen counter. It was the cruelest thing I've ever read. It just said, "You'll figure it out." I didn't know what I'd done wrong. I figured they were just tired of pretending they loved me. But the truth was, they had never even pretended. When I was 13, I made a birthday cake for my mom by myself, only to have her call it clumpy. At 15, I tutored my brother through finals. All the while he called me a know-it-all and slammed his door in my face. At 16, I gave my entire paycheck to my dad so he could cover bills, but got yelled at when I brought it up later after he said I was useless. I was always useful, but never loved. My parents and my brother, my only family, had packed up and moved 2 states away without telling me. I found out from the landlord a week later. I had a week to move out because they'd canceled the lease early. I slept at a friend's house for 3 nights before I ran out of places to go. Eventually, I was sleeping in the back of a storage unit I rented with the last of my savings. I snuck in and showered at the YMCA, ate peanut butter with a spoon for my breakfast, lunch, and dinner, applied for jobs on free library computers, and pretended everything was okay. Eventually, I got hired at a diner, server for the night shift. The manager was gruff, but fair, paid me cash under the table until I could get an ID. She let me nap in the break room once when I nearly collapsed from exhaustion. I clawed my way through it, bought a prepaid phone, saved every single receipt, watched free YouTube tutorials on finance and goal setting. The first year, I barely survived, but I made it through. The turning point came when a regular at the diner offered me a temp job cleaning out office files. It paid triple what I made serving. I said yes. That job led to another, and another. I learned quickly, showed up early, and asked questions. By 22, I was freelancing full-time. By 25, I launched a consulting business. Just me, a folding table, and a borrowed laptop. By 27, I had 5 contractors under me, my own office, and a client roster that included companies I used to dream about. And by 29, I was officially a millionaire. Not influencer millionaire, not fake it for Instagram millionaire. Actual savings with a retirement account, no debt, paid off apartment, health insurance I could afford. The first time I saw my bank app hit 7 figures, I cried. Throughout those tough years, my family never reached out, not even once. I saw my brother pop up in a suggested friends list once. He's married now, still living in the state they disappeared to. I stared at the screen for a long time, wondering if he ever told his wife about me, if he said I ran away, or if he says nothing at all. Sometimes I still wonder if it would have been easier to hate them. But truthfully, it was never hate. It was heartbreak. I go to therapy now because I want to stay unbroken. I've made a list of people who saved me when they didn't have to, like coworkers, classmates, and strangers who showed me what real support looks like. Last week, a podcast interview I did about surviving family estrangement blew up online. It hit 1 million views in 4 days. My inbox filled with messages of support, gratitude, and strangers telling me I put words to their pain. And then, one email stood out. The subject line, "You're still our daughter." It was from my mom. No apology. Just a paragraph about hearing my side and how maybe we could talk. Then another message, this time from my brother. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I stared at the screen for a long time before closing the laptop. I sat with it and wondered if healing means looking back or staying forward. I didn't respond right away, so I needed time to process. My therapist, Melissa, suggested I take at least a week before making any decisions. "Give yourself space to feel whatever comes up," she said during our session. "There's no rush to respond." So I did. I focused on work, went to the gym, had dinner with friends. Normal stuff. But those emails haunted me. I kept opening them, reading them, closing them again. My mom's message felt cold, clinical almost, like she was reaching out to a distant acquaintance. My brother's was shorter but somehow felt more genuine. I couldn't stop thinking about them. After 10 days, I decided to reply to my brother first. Just something simple. I wrote, "It's been 12 years. What changed?" Then I hit send before I could overthink it. His response came within an hour. He said the podcast made him realize what they'd done. He claimed he was only 15 when they left me, that he didn't have a choice, that he'd always wondered about me, that he'd looked me up online a few times over the years but never had the courage to reach out, that seeing me successful made him proud. I didn't buy it, not completely. If he'd been so concerned, why wait until I was publicly successful? I asked him exactly that. His next email was longer. He admitted that money was tight for them, that my parents' business had failed, that his wife was pregnant with their second child, that medical bills were piling up. I felt my stomach drop. There it was, the real reason. I didn't respond for another week. Then my mom sent a follow-up email with old family photos attached. Pictures of me as a baby, pictures of us at the beach when I was maybe 5 or 6, pictures of me and Michael building a snowman, happy moments that felt like they belonged to someone else's life. At the bottom of the email, she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." I showed the emails to Melissa during our next session. She reminded me that I was in control, that I could set boundaries, that I didn't owe them anything. But she also said that closure might help me move forward, whether that meant reconciliation or a final goodbye. I nodded along, but inside I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to tell them to go to hell. Another part wanted to understand why they left me. And a tiny, stupid part of me still wanted them to love me. I decided to meet my brother first. Just him. No parents. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Chicago, halfway between where we both lived. I flew in that morning, checked into a hotel, and tried to calm my nerves. I almost canceled 3 times. But at 2 p.m., I walked into that coffee shop and saw him immediately. He looked older, heavier, with a receding hairline, but his eyes were the same. He stood up when he saw me, awkward and uncertain. I didn't hug him. We just sat across from each other with our coffees, like strangers. The first 20 minutes were painful. Small talk about the weather, about my flight, about his drive. Then he started apologizing. "Emma, I'm so sorry," Michael said, his voice cracking. "I was just a kid when it happened. I didn't know they were planning to leave you behind until it was too late. I was too scared to stand up to them. I just listened, watching his face for signs of deception. He seemed sincere, but I'd been fooled before. I asked him the question that had haunted me for 12 years. Why me? Why was I the one left behind?" He looked down at his coffee. "They always saw you as the strong one, the independent one, the one who would be fine on your own. They thought you didn't need them as much as I did. They convinced themselves you'd be better off without them." It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I told him about the storage unit, about eating peanut butter for weeks, about showering at the YMCA and working night shifts at 17. His face crumpled. "I didn't know," he whispered. "They told me you had a plan, that you wanted to stay behind, that you were going to live with a friend's family, that you'd chosen to separate from us. All lies." By the end of our meeting, I wasn't sure what to think. He seemed genuinely remorseful. He showed me pictures of his wife and daughter, told me about his job as an accountant, asked about my business, didn't directly ask for money, which surprised me. When we parted, he hugged me. I let him, but I didn't hug back. I just stood there, arms at my sides, feeling nothing. Back at my hotel, I called Melissa, told her everything. She pointed out that while my brother seemed sorry, he was still framing himself as a victim rather than acknowledging his role in my abandonment. She was right. He'd been 15, not 5. Old enough to pick up a phone, old enough to send an email, old enough to check on me at some point in 12 years. That night, my mom called. I hadn't given her my number, so Michael must have. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Her voice sounded older, raspier. She cried when I said hello, started talking about how proud she was of me, how she'd always known I would succeed, how special I was. I let her talk herself out. Then I asked her the same question I'd asked my brother. Why me? Her answer was different. "We were in debt, Emma. We couldn't afford 3 mouths to feed. We knew you were smart enough to make it on your own. We figured you'd go to social services and get placed with a better family. We thought we were doing you a favor." I hung up on her, blocked her number immediately, threw my phone across the room and screamed into a pillow. The next morning, I had an email from my dad. First contact in 12 years. He didn't apologize. Instead, he wrote about how hard their lives had been, about medical bills and failed businesses, about how Michael's wife needed surgery, about how they were facing eviction. Then, at the very end, he asked if I could help the family out. Not a single question about my life, not a single acknowledgement of what they'd done. I forwarded the email to Melissa with the subject line, and there it is. She called me immediately, despite it being Sunday. We talked for an hour, about boundaries, about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about the difference between helping someone and enabling them, about what I actually wanted versus what I thought I should want. By Monday morning, I had made my decision. I emailed my brother, told him I was glad we'd met, that I understood he was in a difficult position when we were younger, that I was willing to have a relationship with him and his family, but with clear boundaries. No money, no loans, no financial support of any kind, and no relationship with our parents until they took full responsibility for their actions. His response was immediate and telling. "I'm really disappointed, Emma," he wrote. "Our parents really need help. Families should support each other. You're being selfish with your success." All the guilt buttons they'd installed in me as a child, pushed at once. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked an appointment with Melissa and a vacation to Bali. I needed space to process everything. 3 days later, Michael called, left a voicemail apologizing for his email, said he understood my position, said he still wanted a relationship on my terms, said he'd respect my boundaries. I listened to it twice, trying to decide if he was sincere or just changing tactics. I decided to give him one more chance, but with my guard up. I went to Bali anyway, spent 2 weeks on the beach, hiking through rice fields, and meditating. I needed the distance. When I got back, I had 6 more emails from my dad, each more desperate than the last. I didn't read past the subject lines. I also had a text from Michael asking if we could talk again. I agreed to a phone call, nothing more. The call started okay. He apologized again for pushing. "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me," he said. "I'm in therapy now too." I believed that part. He sounded different, less defensive. We talked about his kids, about my business, normal stuff. Then he mentioned that our parents were coming to visit him next weekend, asked if I would consider meeting them, just for an hour, in a public place. I felt my chest tighten. "I'm not ready for that, Michael." He pushed a little, but backed off when I got quiet. After we hung up, I called Melissa. We had an emergency session that night. She helped me realize I was afraid of seeing them. Not because I hated them, but because I still craved their approval. Still wanted them to love me. Still wanted to be enough. It was pathetic, but it was true. I cried for an hour in her office. The next day, Michael texted again. Said our mom was crying all night after he told her I wouldn't meet them. Said our dad was talking about driving to my city anyway. I felt panicky. Blocked Michael's number immediately. Then I called my assistant and told her I was working from home for the week. Ordered groceries for delivery. Basically hid in my apartment like a scared kid. On Wednesday, the doorman called up. Said there was a couple asking for me. Wouldn't give their names. I knew instantly. Told him I wasn't accepting visitors. 5 minutes later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my dad. "Emma, we drove 8 hours to see you," his angry voice said. "You're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain." I deleted the message and turned off my phone. Thursday morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door. I froze in bed, heart racing, checked the peephole. It was them, my parents, standing in my hallway like they had any right to be there. "Emma, please." My mom's voice came through the door. "We just want to talk to you. We know you're in there," my dad added. "We love you. We're sorry." sorry. I didn't open the door. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, shaking. Eventually, they left. I called building security immediately, told them not to let those people up again. The guard sounded concerned, asked if I needed police. I said no, just don't let them up. Then I called Melissa. She came over on her lunch break, brought me a sandwich and sat with me while I cried, told me I had every right to set boundaries, that I didn't owe them a meeting, that what they were doing was harassment, not reconciliation. After she left, I got an email from Michael. He was furious, said I'd humiliated our parents, said they were staying in a cheap motel they couldn't afford because they were so desperate to see me, said his wife needed surgery next month and they were hoping I could help, said I was being cruel. I didn't respond. Friday morning, I decided I needed to leave town for a while, booked a flight to visit my friend Rachel in Portland. She'd been one of the people who helped me when I was homeless, let me crash on her couch for a week when I had nowhere else to go. I trusted her completely. I was throwing clothes in a suitcase when my phone rang. Unknown number again. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, my doorman called, said there was a woman downstairs having what looked like a medical issue, said she was asking for me by name, claimed to be my mother. I felt sick, told him to call an ambulance if she needed help, but I wasn't coming down. He sounded uncomfortable but agreed. I finished packing and headed downstairs an hour later, checked the lobby carefully before entering. No sign of them. I felt relieved but also weirdly guilty. The doorman gave me a strange look as I passed, told me the ambulance had come, that the woman had been having chest pains, that she'd been taken to Memorial Hospital. I nodded and hurried out to my waiting Uber. At the airport, I got another call from Michael. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom had a heart attack. He was crying. She's in surgery. This is your fault for stressing her out. I hung up on him, called Melissa instead. She answered immediately. I told her what happened, asked if I was a terrible person. Emma, listen to me, she said firmly. You are not responsible for your mother's health. This feels like another manipulation tactic. Get on your plane and take care of yourself. I did. Spent the weekend with Rachel, told her everything. She remembered when my family abandoned me, remembered how broken I'd been. She was furious on my behalf. They don't deserve a minute of your time, she said, pouring me another glass of wine. Not after what they did to you. It felt good to have someone so firmly in my corner. Sunday night, I got an email from my dad. My mom was stable, had a stent put in, would be released Tuesday. The email ended with, "She's asking for you. Don't you think you've punished us enough?" I showed Rachel. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Told me this was textbook guilt tripping. I knew she was right, but part of me still felt responsible. I flew home Monday, found flowers outside my apartment door. The card said, "Please call us. We're staying at the Holiday Inn until Wednesday." No apology, no acknowledgement of boundaries, just another demand. I threw the flowers in the trash chute. Tuesday morning, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my mom in a hospital bed, looking pale and small. The message said, "She might not have much time left. Do you really want to live with this regret?" I blocked the number, called Melissa. She suggested I take a social media break, change my number, maybe even stay with a friend for a while. I agreed, called my assistant and told her I'd be working remotely for 2 weeks, packed another bag. Before I could leave, my doorman called again, said there was a young woman downstairs asking for me, said she had a small child with her, said she claimed to be my sister-in-law. I felt cornered. These people wouldn't stop. I told the doorman to send her up, decided to face this head on. The woman who knocked on my door looked exhausted, had dark circles under her eyes, was holding a sleeping toddler against her shoulder. "I'm Jenny," she said quietly, "Michael's wife. I came alone because I wanted to talk to you without family drama." I let her in reluctantly, offered her water. She accepted gratefully. Jenny put her sleeping daughter on my couch, tucking a blanket around her. Then she sat at my kitchen table and started talking. "I only learned about you 3 years ago," she admitted. "Michael told me you ran away at 17, cut contact with the family. I always thought it was strange but never pushed. Hearing your podcast was a shock. I confronted him, and he finally admitted the truth. I just listened, not sure what to believe anymore." Jenny seemed sincere. "I'm horrified by what they did to you," she continued. "I insisted Michael reach out, but I had no idea they were going to ask you for money. I'm embarrassed and angry about that. Yes, I do need surgery for a thyroid condition, but we have insurance. Your parents are the ones in financial trouble, not us." I asked her why she'd come. She looked me straight in the eyes. "You deserve to know the whole truth," she said. "Your parents have been telling everyone you abandoned the family, that you were mentally unstable, that you stole money from them before disappearing, that they spent years looking for you. All lies to cover what they'd done." I felt like I'd been punched. "How do you know this is true?" She pulled out her phone, showed me Facebook posts from years back. My mom asking for prayers to find her troubled daughter. My dad claiming I'd taken their savings before running away. Posts about hiring private investigators, about checking homeless shelters. All carefully crafted to make them look like victims. All dated years after they'd abandoned me. Jenny apologized for being part of it, even unknowingly. Said she'd confronted my parents too. That they'd admitted everything to her when she threatened to tell the whole family the truth. That they were desperate now because their lies were unraveling. That my podcast had people asking questions they couldn't answer. Her daughter woke up then. A cute little girl with curly hair. "This is Lily," Jenny said softly. "She's 3. I have another daughter on the way. I want my children to know their aunt, but only if you want that too. No pressure, no guilt. Just an open door if you ever choose to walk through it." After they left, I sat in my apartment for hours, processing, called Melissa again, told her everything Jenny had said. She wasn't surprised. "Abusers often control the narrative," she explained. "They create alternate realities where they're the victims." She asked what I wanted to do now. I honestly didn't know. That night, I got another email from my dad. This one was different, angry, threatening. Said if I told lies about them online, they would sue me for defamation. Said they had proof I'd stolen from them. Said they'd go to the media with their side if I didn't take down the podcast and issue a public apology. Said they expected financial compensation for the damage to their reputations. I forwarded it to Melissa, then to my lawyer, Marcus. He called me immediately. "This is empty threatening," he assured me. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Save everything but don't respond. I'll handle it if they actually file anything, which I doubt they will. People who are actually going to sue don't usually announce it first. The next day, I got a call from Michael. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded panicked. Emma, Jenny told me she visited you. Our parents are furious. They're saying terrible things about her now too. I'm scared they're going to try something desperate. Please call me back on Jenny's phone, not mine. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Called Marcus again. He suggested meeting Michael and Jenny somewhere public, with him present as my lawyer, just to hear them out. I agreed reluctantly. We set up a meeting at a restaurant near Marcus's office for the next day. They showed up on time. Both looked terrible, stressed, exhausted. Jenny had a bruise on her arm she kept trying to hide. Michael couldn't make eye contact. I'm Marcus, Emma's attorney, he said as we sat down, which made Michael flinch. But we sat down, ordered coffee, and they started talking. The story that came out was worse than I'd imagined. My parents had been living off Michael for years, moving in and out of his house, taking money for emergencies, watching his kids while criticizing his parenting. When Jenny confronted them about me, my dad had grabbed her arm, hard enough to leave marks. Michael had kicked them out. They were now staying in a motel, calling constantly, showing up at his work. I listened without interrupting, watched my brother break down as he described how our parents had controlled him his entire life, how they'd convinced him I abandoned them, how he'd been too scared to question their version of events, how he'd been trapped in their web of manipulation and lies for 12 years, how he was terrified they would hurt Jenny or the kids. Marcus asked careful questions about financial entanglements, about house titles and bank accounts, about whether my parents had keys to their house. Michael answered everything, said they'd co-signed his mortgage, said his dad was still on his bank account from when he was in college, said they had spare keys, said they knew all his passwords. Marcus took notes, occasionally glancing at me. By the end of the meeting, I felt drained but clearer. This wasn't just about me anymore. Michael and Jenny were victims too, in their own way, different from me, but still trapped. Marcus suggested they speak to a lawyer of their own, gave them a colleague's card, told them to change their locks, passwords, and bank accounts immediately. They nodded, looking overwhelmed but grateful. As we were leaving, Michael hugged me. This time, I hugged him back. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. A recognition that we'd both been damaged by the same people, that maybe we could help each other heal. That night, I got a series of increasingly unhinged texts from my parents' numbers. Accusations, threats, guilt trips. I blocked them all. Then I called Jenny, asked if they were safe. She said yes. They'd changed the locks, stayed with friends the night before, were looking into a restraining order. I felt relieved but still worried. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Jenny, hysterical. They broke into our house, she sobbed. They took Lily's baby photos, important documents, Michael's laptop. They left a note. Family matters should stay in the family. I told her to call the police immediately, said I'd meet them at their house, called Marcus on my way. When I arrived, there was a police car outside their house. An officer was taking statements in the living room. The place was a mess. Drawers pulled out, papers scattered. Michael was sitting on the couch, head in his hands. Jenny was pointing out missing items to the officer. I introduced myself as family, there to help. The officer seemed skeptical that grandparents would break in. Are you sure they didn't just use a key? He asked. Maybe this is a misunderstanding? Jenny showed him her bruised arm, told him about the escalating behavior, about the threats, about how they'd been stalking them. He took notes but didn't seem convinced. Said without evidence, it would be hard to prove who did this. After the police left, we cleaned up together. Found more missing things. Photo albums, financial documents, the spare key to their car. Michael looked defeated. This is my fault, he said. I should have protected my family better. Should have stood up to them years ago. Should have looked for you harder. I didn't disagree, but I didn't pile on either. We were beyond that now. Marcus arrived as we were finishing, looked around grimly, said this changed things, that we needed to document everything, that breaking and entering was a serious crime, that we should all stay somewhere else for a few days, that he'd help us file for emergency restraining orders in the morning. We nodded, too exhausted to argue. Jenny packed bags for them while Michael and I secured the house as best we could, changed locks again, checked windows, discussed security cameras. It felt surreal, taking these precautions against our own parents, but also necessary. They'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. As we were leaving, Michael got a text from our dad. Just 3 words. We're watching you. He showed it to me, hands shaking. I took a screenshot, sent it to Marcus. Then I made a decision. Told them they were coming to stay with me. My building had security, cameras, a doorman who already knew not to let our parents in. They accepted gratefully. That night, the 4 of us ate takeout in my living room. Lily played with toys Jenny had packed. We talked quietly about next steps, about restraining orders, about police reports, about changing phone numbers and email addresses, about possibly moving to a new house, about how to protect themselves long term. It wasn't the family reunion I'd ever imagined. Sitting there with the brother who'd let me be abandoned, his wife who'd believed lies about me, and their daughter who was innocent in all of this. But somehow, it felt right. Like we were finally facing the truth together. Like maybe, just maybe, we could build something new from the ashes of what our parents had destroyed. The next morning, Marcus called, said he'd filed emergency restraining orders for all of us, said we needed to appear in court next week to make them permanent, said he'd also reported the break-in to a detective he knew, who was taking it more seriously than the responding officers had, said we should all stay together until this was resolved. I agreed, called my assistant, told her I'd be working from home indefinitely, family emergency. She understood, rearranged my schedule. I set up a workspace in my guest room for Michael, who also needed to work remotely. Jenny and Lily took over my living room, building pillow forts and watching cartoons. It was strange having people in my space. I'd lived alone for years, liked my quiet routines, my clean counters, my empty sink. but there was something comforting about the noise too. About Lily's laughter, about Jenny's quiet humming as she folded laundry, about Michael's typing from the other room. It felt like family. Not the family that had abandoned me, but maybe the family we could become. That afternoon, my doorman called up. Said there was a delivery. Flowers. I told him to check the card before sending them up. He read it to me. We know where you all are. This isn't over. I told him to refuse the delivery. Call the police if the delivery person wouldn't take them back. Then I called Marcus again. He said he'd add this to our case file, that it strengthened our request for restraining orders, that we were doing everything right. I didn't tell Michael or Jenny about the flowers. They were stressed enough. Instead, I ordered extra groceries, made dinner for everyone, played with Lily, tried to create some normalcy in this bizarre situation. But that night, after everyone was asleep, I sat alone in my kitchen and finally let myself feel everything. The fear, the anger, the grief, the strange hope. I cried silently into a dish towel so no one would hear me. In the morning, Jenny found me making coffee, asked if I was okay. I lied, said yes. She didn't believe me. Sat down at the counter. It's okay not to be okay, Emma, she said gently. I'm not either. Michael cries in the shower where he thinks no one can hear. Lily keeps asking when we can go home. This whole situation is terrible, but I'm grateful we're facing it together. I looked at her, this woman I barely knew who was somehow now part of my life. Asked her why she'd come to me that first day, why she'd chosen to believe me over the family she'd known for years. She smiled sadly. I've always felt something was off about your parents, about the stories they told, about the way they controlled Michael. The podcast confirmed my suspicions. I couldn't let my daughters grow up thinking abandoning a child was ever acceptable. We hugged then. First time. It felt awkward but genuine, like the beginning of something. Not friendship exactly, not yet, but understanding. Solidarity, a shared determination to break the cycle of mistreatment that had damaged us all. The next few days fell into a routine. Working, cooking, playing with Lily, checking in with Marcus, jumping at unexpected noises, flinching when phones rang, living in a strange limbo of domestic normalcy and underlying tension. We were safe but not at peace, together but still healing, family but still learning what that meant. On Friday, Marcus called with news. The detective had found evidence. Security footage from a gas station near Michael's house showed our parents' car parked there during the time of the break-in. The restraining order hearing was set for Monday. He was confident we'd get approved. We all felt relieved but still anxious, still waiting for the next escalation. It came that night. A brick through Michael's car window in the parking garage. No note this time. No need for one. The message was clear. The building security footage showed a man in a baseball cap, face carefully turned away from cameras. We couldn't prove it was our dad, but we all knew. Filed another police report, added it to our case file, tried not to let Lily see how scared we were. Sunday night, we sat together making a plan for court. What to wear, what to say, what evidence to bring, how to explain our family history without sounding crazy, how to make the judge understand the pattern of escalation, how to protect ourselves legally and physically. It felt surreal discussing our parents this way, like talking about strangers, dangerous strangers who happened to share our DNA. As we talked, my phone pinged with an email notification from my mom. Subject line, last chance. I almost deleted it unread, but something made me open it. It was short, just one line. If you go to court tomorrow, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. I showed it to Marcus, who'd stayed for dinner. He took a screenshot, added it to our file, told me not to respond, said this kind of threat would only help our case. That night, none of us slept well. I kept checking my locks, listening for noises, wondering what my parents might do next, wondering if we were overreacting, wondering if we were underreacting, wondering how my life had come to this point. From abandoned teenager to successful businesswoman to hiding in my own apartment from the people who gave me life. Monday morning arrived with a strange calm. We dressed carefully, business casual, respectable, trustworthy. Jenny arranged for a friend to watch Lily. We drove to the courthouse in separate cars just in case. Met Marcus on the steps outside. He looked confident, briefcase in hand, told us he'd handled dozens of cases like this, that the evidence was strong, that judges took threats seriously, that we'd be protected. As we walked into the courthouse, I spotted them, my parents, standing near the entrance, looking older than I remembered, smaller somehow. My mom saw me first, made a move toward me. My dad grabbed her arm, held her back. They watched us pass, didn't speak, didn't try to approach, just stared with a mixture of anger and something else, something that might have been fear. We filed past them into the building, checked in at security, followed Marcus to the correct courtroom, sat together on a bench, waiting for our case to be called. I could feel my parents enter behind us, could sense them sitting on the opposite side of the room, could almost hear their whispered conversation. But I didn't turn around, kept my eyes forward, focused on breathing. The judge called our case. We stood, walked forward, took our places. Marcus presented our evidence calmly. The break-in, the threatening texts, the flowers, the brick, the email, the history of abandonment and manipulation. The judge listened carefully, asked clarifying questions, looked at our parents with increasing concern. When it was their turn, my parents approached the bench. No lawyer, just them. My dad spoke first, claimed we were exaggerating, that they were just trying to reconnect with family, that they'd never broken any laws, that they loved us and wanted to make amends, that this was all a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. The judge asked about the security footage, the threatening messages. My dad denied everything, said it wasn't them on the footage, said their texts were being misinterpreted, said they were the victims here, not us. My mom nodded along, occasionally dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Then the judge asked them directly about abandoning me at 17. My dad hesitated, started talking about troubled teens, about difficult decisions, about doing what they thought was best. The judge cut him off, asked again, directly, did you leave your minor child alone and move to another state? My dad looked down, mumbled something about financial hardship. The judge's expression hardened. After hearing both sides, the judge granted our restraining orders. 3 years, no contact, no approaching our homes or workplaces, no messages through third parties. Any violation would result in immediate arrest. fast. My parents looked stunned, like they couldn't believe this was happening, like they'd never faced consequences before. As we left the courtroom, my mom called my name, just once, softly. I kept walking, didn't look back, felt a weight lifting with each step. Not healing, not yet, but the beginning of it. The first real boundary that couldn't be crossed without serious consequences. Outside, Marcus shook all our hands, said we'd done well, said the orders were solid, said to call him immediately if there were any violations, said he was proud of us for standing up for ourselves. We thanked him, feeling dazed but relieved, like survivors of a natural disaster, blinking in the sunlight. Michael hugged me on the courthouse steps, a real hug this time. "I'm sorry, Emma," he said, voice breaking, "for everything, for not protecting you then, for not finding you sooner, for believing their lies, for bringing this chaos back into your life." I hugged him back, told him we were going to be okay, that we had each other now, that we could build something new, something better. As we walked to our cars, I felt my phone buzz, a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't check it, but when I did, I felt a chill. It was a photo of Lily at her friend's house, playing in the backyard, unaware she was being watched. Below it, just 4 words: "This isn't over yet." I showed Michael the text immediately. His face went white. He called Jenny, who was already on her way to pick up Lily. I told them to meet us at my apartment. Then I called Marcus from the car, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. He told me to forward him the text and drive straight home. Said he'd call the police and meet us there. Said this was a clear violation of the restraining order. Said to stay calm, but vigilant. The drive back felt like it took forever. I kept checking my mirrors, paranoid my parents were following me. When I finally pulled into my building's garage, I sat in my car for a minute just breathing, trying to get my poop together before facing Michael and Jenny. They needed me to be strong right now. I found them already in my apartment, Jenny clutching Lily like she might disappear. The poor kid looked confused and scared. Michael was pacing, running his hands through his hair over and over. I showed them the text. Jenny started crying, said they'd been watching her baby, said she'd never forgive herself if something happened to Lily. Michael put his arms around them both, looking more determined than I'd ever seen him. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later with 2 police officers. They took our statements, looked at the text, made some calls, said they'd send a patrol car to the friend's house to check things out, said they'd try to trace the number, said they'd increase patrols around my building. All the right things, but I could tell they didn't fully get how dangerous my parents could be, how unpredictable, how desperate. After the police left, we sat in my living room trying to figure out next steps. Jenny suggested going to a hotel under different names. Michael thought we should drive to his cousin's house a few states away. I just sat there getting angrier by the minute. This was bull crap. We'd done everything right, followed all the legal channels, got our restraining orders, and they were still terrorizing us, still controlling our lives through fear. I stood up suddenly. "I'm done running," I said. "Done hiding. Done letting them dictate how I live my life. They've already stolen my childhood. I'm not giving them my adulthood too." Michael looked at me like I was crazy. "What are you planning to do?" I honestly didn't know yet, but I knew we couldn't keep living like this. That night, we took turns keeping watch while the others slept. I took the first shift, sitting by my living room window with all the lights off, watching the street below. Around 2 a.m., I spotted a car I recognized, my dad's old Buick. It circled the block 3 times before parking across the street. I took pictures with my phone, then woke Michael. We watched together as our dad sat in his car, just staring up at my building, not approaching, not violating the restraining order technically, just letting us know he was there, watching, waiting. In the morning, I sent the photos to Marcus. He said it was concerning, but not technically a violation since my dad stayed in his car, away from the building. Said to keep documenting everything. Said he'd talk to the detective again. I hung up feeling frustrated. The legal system had limits. Restraining orders were just pieces of paper. They couldn't stop someone determined to hurt you. Jenny and Michael decided to take Lily to a hotel for a few days, somewhere with interior corridors and good security. I helped them pack, hugged them goodbye, promised to check in every few hours. After they left, I sat in my empty apartment feeling strangely calm, like I'd reached some kind of decision point, like I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I called Melissa, told her everything, asked her what she thought I should do. She was quiet for a minute. Then she asked me a question that hit me hard. "What do you actually want from your parents?" Not what I didn't want, not what I was afraid of, but what I actively wanted. I realized I'd never really thought about it that way. After we hung up, I made a list. What I wanted: 1, to live without fear. 2, to have a relationship with my brother and his family. 3, to stop feeling responsible for my parents' actions. 4, to be free of the past. Nowhere on that list was reconciliation with my parents. Nowhere was forgiveness. Nowhere was understanding why they did what they did. I just wanted to be free of them. That afternoon, I did something crazy. I emailed my parents. Just a short message. "I know you're watching my building. I know you're not going to stop. So let's talk. One last time. Tomorrow, noon. The coffee shop on 8th Street. Just me. No police. No lawyers. After that, you leave us all alone forever." I hit send before I could change my mind. I didn't tell Michael or Jenny. Didn't tell Marcus or Melissa. This was something I needed to do myself. For myself. I wasn't naive enough to think my parents would suddenly become reasonable people, but I needed to face them on my terms. Needed to say my piece. Needed to end this cycle once and for all. My dad replied within minutes. Just, "We'll be there." No threats. No guilt trips. Just confirmation. I spent the rest of the day preparing. Not physically. Mentally. Thinking about what I wanted to say. What I needed them to hear. What boundaries I needed to set. I slept surprisingly well that night. Like making a decision had lifted some weight off me. The next morning, I dressed carefully. Not to impress them. Just to feel strong. Confident. I took an Uber to the coffee shop, arriving 15 minutes early. Chose a table in the back corner where I could see the door but wasn't immediately visible from outside. Ordered a coffee I didn't really want. Just sat there, waiting. Surprisingly calm. They arrived exactly at noon. Looking older than they had in court. More tired. My mom spotted me first. nudged my dad. They walked over slowly, like they were approaching a wild animal that might bolt. Sat down across from me without speaking. We just looked at each other for a long moment. These strangers who were my parents, these people who had shaped me in ways they'd never understand. I spoke first. I didn't call this meeting to reconcile, or to give you money, or to hear excuses. I called it to make you understand one thing. It's over. You've lost. Not just the court case. You've lost me, lost Michael, lost your grandchildren, lost any chance at being part of our lives. And if you can't accept that, if you keep stalking us, threatening us, trying to force your way back in, I will destroy you. My dad started to interrupt. I held up my hand. I'm not finished. Then I pulled out my phone, showed them screenshots of all their threatening messages, the photo of Lily, the emails. I've sent copies to everyone in your lives, your siblings, your church, your neighbors, your employers, everyone. Not yet, but I will if you contact any of us again. If you come near our homes, if you so much as mention our names to anyone we knew. My mom started crying. We just want our family back. We made mistakes, but we deserve another chance. We're getting older and don't want to die alone. I looked at her for a long moment. You should have thought about that before abandoning your 17-year-old daughter, before lying to everyone about what you'd done, before breaking into Michael's house, before threatening your own grandchild. My dad got angry then. You're ungrateful. You've always been difficult. You've turned your brother against us. You owe us for raising you. I just laughed. Actually laughed in his face. Do you really think you're entitled to gratitude for doing the bare minimum as a parent for 17 years before abandoning me completely? Do you think your parenting was so stellar that I should be thanking you for it? He didn't have an answer for that, just sat there, red-faced and silent. My mom was still crying, but I felt nothing. No guilt, no sympathy, just a cold clarity that these people were never going to change, never going to take responsibility, never going to be the parents I deserved. I stood up to leave. This is your last warning. Next time you violate the restraining order, I won't just call the police. I'll make sure everyone you know understands exactly what kind of people you really are. I have the resources to make your lives very difficult if you force my hand. I don't want to do that, but I will to protect my family, my real family, Michael, Jenny, Lily, the people I choose. As I walked away, my mom called after me. Do you really hate us that much? I stopped, turned around. I don't hate you. I feel nothing for you. You're strangers to me now, and that's your loss, not mine. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in years, called Michael from the sidewalk, told him everything. He was upset at first that I'd met them alone, then concerned they might retaliate, but mostly he seemed relieved that someone had finally stood up to them directly, said he wished he'd had the courage to do it years ago. I went back to my apartment, packed a bag, decided to join Michael and his family at their hotel for a few days, just to be safe. When I got there, Lily ran to hug me. Auntie Emma, she called for the first time. I almost cried. Jenny hugged me too, said she was proud of me, said she hoped I'd finally get some peace. Michael just squeezed my shoulder, no words needed. We spent the next few days in a weird limbo, waiting for my parents to make their next move, checking our phones constantly, jumping at unexpected noises, but nothing happened. No calls, no texts, no emails, no sightings of their car, just silence. After a week, Michael and Jenny decided to go home, changed all their locks again, installed security cameras, made plans to put their house on the market, started looking at places closer to my city. I went back to my apartment too, back to work, back to something like normal life. 2 weeks passed, then a month. Nothing from my parents. Marcus checked in regularly, said the detective had confirmed they'd returned to their home state, said the restraining orders were still in effect, said we should stay vigilant but try to move forward with our lives. Slowly we did. Michael found a new job in my city. Jenny enrolled Lily in preschool. They bought a house 20 minutes from my apartment. We had dinner together every Sunday, started building new traditions, new memories, a new kind of family based on choice rather than obligation. I kept expecting to feel something about my parents, grief maybe, or guilt, or anger, but mostly I felt relief, like I'd finally put down a heavy weight I'd been carrying since I was 17, like I could finally focus on the future instead of the past. 6 months after the coffee shop confrontation, I got a letter, forwarded through Marcus so my address stayed private, from my mom. I almost didn't open it, almost threw it away unread, but curiosity won out. It was short, just a few paragraphs. No excuses this time, no demands, just an acknowledgement that they'd hurt me deeply, that they'd failed as parents, that they understood why I wanted nothing to do with them, that they were getting counseling, that they would respect the restraining orders, that they hoped someday I might be willing to hear a proper apology, but understood if that day never came. I showed it to Michael. He got a similar letter. We talked about it over dinner that night, about whether it was sincere, about whether it changed anything, about whether we could ever trust them again. We didn't reach any conclusions, just agreed to take it one day at a time, to prioritize our healing, to protect the family we were building. I keep the letter in my desk drawer, not because I'm ready to forgive, not because I want reconciliation, but because it represents something important. My parents finally recognizing my right to set boundaries, my right to choose who I allow in my life, my right to define family on my own terms. Last week, Lily had her 4th birthday party. Michael and Jenny invited me to help plan it. We had it at my apartment. Balloons everywhere. A cake I ordered from a fancy bakery. Presents piled on the coffee table. Lily running around in a princess dress, laughing. Jenny taking pictures. Michael grilling on my balcony. Friends stopping by throughout the day. So much noise. So much joy. At one point, I stepped into the kitchen for a moment alone, just watching through the doorway as Michael swung Lily around in circles, as Jenny laughed at something a friend said. As my apartment, once so empty and quiet, filled with life and love. I thought about that note on my kitchen counter 12 years ago. You'll figure it out. And I had. Not the way they meant, but I'd figured out what family should be, what love should look like, what I deserved all along. I'm not saying everything's perfect now. I still have trust issues, still go to therapy every week, still have nightmares sometimes about being abandoned, still flinch when my doorbell rings unexpectedly. unexpectedly, but I'm healing. We all are. Building something new from the broken pieces of our past. Something stronger, something chosen, something real. Sometimes people ask if I'll ever reconcile with my parents, if I'll ever let them meet Lily, if I'll ever forgive them for what they did. I don't have answers to those questions yet. Maybe someday, maybe never. But what I do know is this. I'm not defined by what they did to me anymore. I'm defined by what I built after, by the person I chose to become, by the family I chose to create, and that's enough.